Hello, I'm Jeff Gold, and welcome to another Maverick Minute. I have an incredible honor today by being joined by Professor Decker of our College of Business Administration, and as I understand it, you're the chair of the Department of Economics.
That's correct,
right?
yep.
Well, Chris, thank you so much for being with us today. The subject of our conversation is economic impact. And I can tell you as I travel across the state, but also as I travel across the country, I'm constantly being asked what's the economic impact of a college or a program or an institute, because there's an expectation that great universities educate, great universities do research and discovery, scholarship, but great universities also do a lot of community engagement. And that combination of community engagement, discovery and research and education usually produces an economic impact. And so most great universities do study their impact, and I know you're the person that does all that work here at UNO. Is that right?
I've done some of it recently, yes.
And so maybe you could tell me and tell our audience a little bit about your most recent study, over what period of time you studied it, and roughly where we are and what the trajectory looks like for the future.
A couple of years ago, actually it was just last year, I was asked if I would consider doing an economic impact of UNO on the city of Omaha's economy. And as a typical approach to measuring economic impact, and like you've said, a lot of universities ask for these sorts of impact analyses. The typical pattern...
That's because we get asked for them.
That's
so
absolutely
we need a
right.
number to
we
to
need
produce.
a number. What we'll measure directly would be things like faculty and staff salaries, how much spending is done locally as a result of those earned incomes, how much...
So light bulbs and floor wax and things like that.
Exactly. Operations and capital expenditures stimulate growth in the local economy as UNO builds a new addition or hires new faculty. That will stimulate economic activity within the city. So those are the things we try to pick up and measure. But one of the things that was very unique from my perspective about looking at a metropolitan university is that, you know, perhaps different from other land-grant institutions, we're in a metro environment. We'll have about 50, 60,000 alumni, UNO degree alumni living in the city. And with their degrees, they earn additional income, and that means they spend more. So you can see an additional impact that can be at least indirectly linked to UNO through its educational
So give us an idea of the order of magnitude of what an economic impact of a university like UNO produces
if you were to
for
look,
the community.
Yeah, if you were to look at a university of similar size in a non-metropolitan area, you might see an impact on the order of $600 million for a given year. If you were to just look at the standard way of measuring...
Is that roughly where UNO is?
Without including the alumni impact, that's absolutely right. If you include the alumni impact, that stock of 60,000 alum living in the area, that's an additional $700 million impact.
So that would almost more than double.
More than double. So we end up with a $1.2, $1.3 billion impact. And a lot of other metropolitan universities have not explored this as much as I think they should. So when you track impact, I think it's important to try to link as best we can what our real contributions are to the community. We're just focusing here on spending and production patterns within an economy.
And so if you were to go back, and when was the most recent study you did before the one you just finished?
I did a study, maybe 2 or 3 years before that.
And how would you compare where we are now compared to either the direct or with or without the alumni base, shall we say?
In terms of overall impact, there's modest growth, but the growth is coming largely from increased enrollments and increased expansion from the university. One of the series that we look at in our impact study is capital investments. They tend to be what I describe as lumpy over time. You don't always build a new building every year. So there'll be some years where you see a spike.
Although I hope we do, but that's my hope.
I certainly do as well, because that does have an economic impact, employs a lot of additional people. But if you were to look at the trend, you can identify the underlying trend based on faculty expansion, based on program expansion, based on attracting additional students to the area. Additional students, additional graduates, additional spenders, additional faculty would imply additional research projects that could also lead to some additional economic stimulus.
Sure. Grants and contracts.
Exactly. One thing my study does not look at that I would love to incorporate, and I think this is something that we ought to do for the future, and it's something I'm actively trying to pursue, is the degree to which universities like UNO serve as business incubators. And that is, you generate entrepreneurs and they develop new businesses and they employ new people. And that traditional measure has been not included.
So I would guess that would be a really interesting study because of all of the entrepreneurship work that we do here, both in the College of Business and outside of the College of Business. The incubators, for instance, the Unitech Institute and other such things, all spin off intellectual property or use intellectual property from the community and build businesses that support the community. So if I could just ask one more question, in case our audience has questions or I have more questions, or are you the person to go to directly?
Please do. Contact me via email or phone. You'll provide my contact information. I'll be happy to chat with people about impact studies. I love doing them, and I enjoy kind of that boots on the ground approach to research. That's kind of my love.
Well, thank you for all the hard work. Thank you for being with us today.
Absolutely.
And thank you for being with us today on this Maverick Minute.